Hello, friend, and welcome to Borgcast Original Series 2.8, The Changeling, with Marie and Peter.
Hello.
Captain's log, stardate 3541.9. The presence of Nomad aboard my ship has become nightmarish.
Warp 9! Cut your circuits! Warp 10, Mr. Scott! Impossible! He just won't stop!
Condition red, condition red.
What do we do now? Go up and knock?
Mr. Captain.
Governor.
That mechanical beastie is up here.
I felt like music.
What is music?
Keep away from that Scotty!
He's dead, Jim. Captain.
Written by John Meredith Lucas.
Meredith is a woman's name and John is a man's name. Non-binary person?
I doubt it.
Okay.
Possibly it was the middle name of his mother or something. I don't know. Anyway, he was the producer of season 2 as well. And this is the first of 4 written by him. He also directed 4 episodes of Trek. Directed by Mark Daniels. This is his 9th of 15. He also has a little bit of a cameo later on, but I'll flag that up when we get there.
You start off and they're scanning for a science station. There's no sign of life, but there was 4 billion people there at the last census. They're looking for evidence of, like, is there a war, but there's not enough radiation, there's no evidence of disease. They only received a routine report a week ago. So they're trying to work out exactly what's going on. And then suddenly something is coming incredibly fast towards them, and it hits them, and you do the whole Ebo shaky chocodoobie.
What? Well, they turn into the Kinder advert.
Kinder, Yibbo shaky. Me unscrabbly. Chocodoobie! Doubly chocodoobie! Pop swabble! Toy!
No, sorry, would they shake? But I just decided to call it Ebo shaky chocodoobie.
Okay, right. Well, yeah, they're hit by what in the original version is a light that sort of zigzagged across the screen a bit. And in the CG version is more of a sort of flamey bolt thing, really.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't really think they needed to do that, and that's the only alteration they made to this episode as well, so we're just doing it for the sake of it, really.
So I thought they would have improved Nomad, and they didn't.
No, nothing they can do about that. They're literally all they can do is special effect shots, so...
Oh, gosh, okay. So that was your teaser. And then after the teaser, you come back, and their shield has absorbed that energy, which is good, but it was the equivalent of 90 photon torpedoes, and there's a limit to how many more hits they can take. Kirk, understandably, says, contact Starfleet, and they're clearly expecting another attack. And then they find that it's the thing's coming towards them at warp 15, and it's power to shields, and they've found the source, but it's like really tiny. So they fire a torpedo at it, there's a blinding flash, but there's no effect because it gets absorbed. And then the really tiny whatever it is going to destroy them. So Kirk does a sort of last-ditch, all frequencies, all translations, everything. And you think, why didn't he do that sooner? But anyway,
Indeed, yes.
He eventually says, we have no hostile intention. Please communicate with us. And so they end up with this big stream of binary that ends up being single binary, and then it's an old interplanetary code requesting language equivalents, which they give it, and it then fritzes the computer because it's taking it sooner than the computer can deliver it. And then it announces its name is Nomad, and its mission is non-hostile, and it requires communication.
Voiced by Vic Perrin, who was last seen as the Metron in Arena. He'll later return this season for another on-screen appearance. He was also the voice of the Guardians in Buck Rogers Season 2, the story of the same name, and the Tannoy announcer on the Draconia in Season 1.
Oh.
He is also in Kraft Suspense Theatre, amongst other 60s shows.
Are we going to have to watch that?
At some point, I expect we'll watch an episode of that, yes.
Nomad invites them to beam aboard, but they can't beam aboard to Nomad because it's too small. So they said, look, we'll beam you aboard instead. So it materialises while hovering, which I find odd. It's a bit like a person materialising while leaping in midair or something.
I think it's permanently hovering, though, is the idea, unless it's resting on a table. So
Yeah, but why could it not rest on the floor? I don't know.
it
Anyway.
would look odd, wouldn't it? It'd be like somebody materialising in sitting down.
Okay.
It's a nice design, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a bit of wobble, obviously, when it moves, unfortunately.
But you can't see the strings.
Not very often, no.
It looks all right.
Yeah.
It doesn't look stupidly friendly, if you see what I mean. It hasn't got unnecessary Lego hands, or
No.
do you know what I mean?
It is very 60s.
Yeah,
But,
but it's,
hey, this is the 60s. What do you expect?
yeah. I mean, it is very 60s, but what I'm saying is it could look a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah.
And the crew are aware of a probe called Nomad, and when they talk, it sort of says non sequitur, and it doesn't make sense or whatever. And then they're gonna, it wants to know their point of origin, so they're gonna take it to see the star charts, and it says it's capable of moving within the ship. It labels Kirk the creator. This is very
Star Trek the Motion Picture?
yes.
Yeah, it's funny how they can do this story in 50 minutes rather than take 2 hours over it, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't got. Oh, what was her name?
Ilea?
Yes, it hasn't got Aaliyah in it.
No, or Decker with his pecker. But, yeah.
Yeah, but it's very similar, isn't it? The whole creator, because then you've
Yeah,
got the whole.
it's basically the same
units.
plot.
Yeah,
It turns out to have been an Earth probe that's been crashed
Yeah.
with something else. And, yeah, it's the same plot. And as I say, they can do it in 50 minutes.
yeah.
Not saying Roddenberry was short on ideas, but he really was, you know.
Yeah, he was. And so it says that it's there to probe for biological infestations and destroy that which is not perfect.
That's me screwed then.
Well, that's everybody screwed by this sort of definition.
Yeah, by its standards, yes.
Yeah, including it, as we find out.
Spoilers.
Yeah, and then they're sort of talking, and then Mrs. Spock suddenly sort of stands up and says, the creator was testing you. You also need just like Kirk looks at Spock and goes, there's something going on here, we need to have a convo. So says, Mr. Singh here will care to your needs. And I like this we might have seen an Asian technician or Asian crew member before, but I don't think they ever got a speaking role, did they?
Yeah, well, we have seen this actor before.
Okay.
Blaisdell McKee is last seen as Lieutenant Spinelli in Space Seed.
Okay.
He's not Indian or Pakistani, though, which you might expect from the name like Singh. He's Hawaiian.
Is he?
Yes.
Okay.
Never mind, eh?
Never mind. And then Spock says that he's convinced it is Nomad and that it crashed with something else that changed it. Meanwhile, Uhura, while she's waiting for all the decks to report in, like in all their repairs and everything, starts singing over comms, and this little sort of periscopy thing
Gives him an erection.
Basically-
Nomad has an erection.
Yeah, basically. So he floats around with his schlong out, hunting for the source of the singing. Meanwhile, Spock points out that James Kirk is similar to a name that's very similar. Who created him? Somebody Roy Kirk or something like that.
Jackson Roy Kirk. That's a hell of a name, isn't it?
It makes me think of that cat whisperer, Jackson Galaxy.
Yes. Yeah, the picture they show of him, by the way, is director Mark Daniels.
Is
I said
it?
he had a cameo.
Uh-huh.
That's it.
And it appears, and then Scotty sort of stares at it, and then whispers into comms, but surely Nomad must have hearing this, picking this up, and says the mechanical beastie is up here. How has Nomad not heard?
Yeah, it would be better if he'd texted, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
But
or something.
that doesn't come in until the count at Farpoint.
No. And then Uhura's singing, and Nomad says, and then she says, well, I'm just thinking about music. And then he just sort of scans her and says, think about music. And then Scotty goes to intervene and gets zapped, and he's dead, Jim.
It's a nice stunt by Scotty.
It is. He goes flying.
Yeah, somersault. Excellent stuff. It's revealed Nomad has drained Uhura's mind as well as killed Scotty. The probe has to learn about the nature of death and offers to mend him.
You can't mend people!
Yes, he doesn't know that yet. That's a Doctor Who Kinder reference. There's a cool shot of it following McCoy to the turbo lift. Was sort of, I don't know if they had handheld cameras in those days, but they, whatever their equivalent was anyway. In sickbay, Nomad brings Scotty back to life. It claims it's impossible to repair Uhura, however, but Spock claims she can be re-educated. So she's just been blanked, basically, rather than killed. But sure, it's not just as simple as that when you've completely blanked somebody. And apparently it is. They send Nomad to the brig, and Kirk orders Spock to find out what made Nomad tick so they can neutralise it. First officer reports Nomad is too stubborn to lower its shields to be examined, however. He gives Spock a compliment on being well ordered in the process. There's quite a sweet scene with Chapel teaching Uhura to speak English. Apparently she's already learned Swahili.
Except that it seems like what she's actually doing is teaching her to read for the first time in English, when what ought to happen is that because Uhura can clearly speak Swahili fluently, what ought to happen is that she's taught to read in Swahili and is then taught another language, because it seems like she's being taught how to read in the first place.
Well, ultimately, it's an interesting choice that they've made, and actually it was a demand that Nichelle Nichols made to teach us Swahili first. If you think about it, because nobody else is speaking Swahili on the ship. It just seemed odd that they do that. Maybe they were just being culturally sensitive or something, I don't know, but very odd.
Well, I think if they'd looked through her records and gone, what did...
Surely they're going to... If everybody's speaking English, and obviously there's a universal translator, so that's a bit up for grabs, but surely they'd have taught her English first?
I don't know, because language and culture are intertwined, and aren't you changing who she is as a person if you teach her English
Possibly.
first and not Swahili? And then, so they may fall their whole...
Therefore, they were being culturally sensitive.
Yeah.
No, well, in which case Nichelle Nichols' demand was right.
Yes.
I don't know. Spot suggests mind melding with Nomad to learn more. Interesting, if unlikely, that it works on computers.
Yes, I know.
And an ability he could have used several times previously, I think,
Yeah, I
and
know.
certainly in the future, but I don't think he does. Although he does in the motion picture, to be fair. So, The Vulcan identifies another consciousness, Tonru, that collided with Nomad and is the source of its desire to sterilise. Nimoy does a bit of a dark impression. Kirk has to drag him away. Kirk explains the episode title, reasoning that the alien entity is pretending to be Nomad, like the Changeling fairy would a child. Quite a fit for what's happened, but never mind. No. Two red shirts meet their usual fate as Nomad zaps them, then goes to engineering to make the engines more efficient. We get the ship exceeding warp 10, which, as Scott points out, shouldn't be possible, but happens an awful lot in the original series, effectively turning the engines up to 11.
But they didn't all suddenly become lizards or something.
No, quite. Kirk orders it to stop, then makes the mistake of admitting to being a biological unit. We get another cool point-of-view shot as it bogs off to re-evaluate its creator and head off to Earth to sterilise it. Two more red shirts cop for it, and Nomad ignores Kirk's orders. Chapel is lucky not to have been killed as well, as it went to sickbay to view Kirk's files and knocked her out. Surely it would have killed her. He's killed everybody else, but anyway, can't kill one of the regulars. Back in engineering, Nomad turns off the light support systems. Kirk pulls off his standard talk a computer into destroying itself by pointing out it was created by an imperfect creator and it was in error when it misidentified him. Since Nomad is imperfect, it has to kill itself. As it throws a wobbly, they attach anti-grav units and beam it off the ship. It's a nice touch that they don't just manhandle it, that they have to put anti-grav units on it, because clearly it weighs more than it would seem to from its initial sight. Spock congratulates Kirk on using logic to defeat Nomad, but points out he didn't think it had it in him, so it's a bit of an underhanded compliment. And our feeble joke ending this week is Kirk talking about Nomad as his son. Wow.
Well, talking about Nomad as his son is weird enough. I mean, it would be weird but understandable if he actually was the creator. Mm-hmm. But it's weird and not understandable for Kirk. But what's really weird is he keeps saying it thinks I'm its mother. No, if anything, it thinks you're its father, because the last time I checked, you were a cis-het male. Why does Kirk say it thinks I'm its...
Because it thinks he gave birth to it. So, yeah, it's doing that whole, the creative thing is the feminine thing.
Yeah, but it's not.
Well, it is generally, isn't it, biologically?
Well, no, in terms of giving birth is not creating, though, is it?
Well, I mean, effectively, it is, isn't it?
No, it's the growing. It's not the same as the creating.
No.
It's like saying that soil gives birth to a seed. A seed is planted.
What?
It takes both the sperm and the egg.
Right, okay.
To create...
Yeah, but it's let's face it, it's the woman that does most of the work, isn't it?
And the woman grows the baby and gives birth to the baby, but the woman hasn't created it on her own.
Not on her own, no. But has done most of the work. So therefore, that's why it's generally been... That's why we...
Yeah, but not necessarily the nurture. Once the baby is born and it's raised, that can be both parents, also involve grandparents.
Yeah, but the point is that Nomad identifies Kirk as the creator, the one who gave birth to it. Therefore, it's logical it talks about
But
it.
but it doesn't at any point say birth. It just says creator. That's why I find it odd. I do. I just find it weird that he says that he thinks I'm its mother.
I don't think that's at all weird, personally, but there we go.
I find it odd, but I also, as I said, find it odd that he gets anywhere near that, given that he didn't actually create anything anyway. Do you see what I mean? It's like I might understand it a bit more if he was
I do
Jackson.
think you're over-examining this weak-ass joke ending.
Sorry.
It's really not worth spending that much time on.
Sorry. What I want to know, though, different question, and it's not just this that does it. Why is it, if you've got a computer, like, baddie computer, and it's about to die, why does it speed up?
I don't know. It's always... That's a standard thing,
It is. I know it's a standard thing. I know this is not just... But why?
You'd think it was... Sometimes they slow down, which makes more sense, but 9 times out of 10, certainly...
They seem to speed up. Why?
It's shorthand for it going wrong.
Yeah, but why?
I don't know.
Sorry.
I don't come from the 1960s. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Sorry.
I mean, I'm old, but I'm not that old.
I'm just wondering, does it come from, like, serials from the 1940s or 20s? I just find it weird. It doesn't make any sense to me that a computer would speed up because it was broken. Do you see what I mean? Slow down, get that.
I guess it's their experience with analog tape machines, which when they go wonky.
Yes. Yeah, no, that would make sense.
Yeah, so they're probably imagining that it's got lots of little tape. Because, a computer bank in those days was a big...
you're right. Yeah, no, I reckon you're right.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, we are. See, you've explained it.
Yeah, even
You
though
are
I
old.
don't come from
Sorry.
60s. Go off a person, Well, at least there's nothing offensive in the story this week.
Yeah.
It's all fairly okay and proper sci-fi stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, it's going to get a bit of a cliche, Kirk talking computers to death, but it hasn't quite got to that point yet.
No, not at this point.
But the next episode probably will. Anyway, dear. Let's find out what other people thought.
And we've heard from Jeff, who writes, "This is a pretty good episode. Big concepts and high tension. Scotty and Uhura get some quality screen time. Too bad Uhura's storyline is incredibly horrific. It's been said a person is the sum of their memories, and a Time Lord doubly so. After this incident, the Uhura we know and love would have been gone, but everyone shrugs it off and figures it's fine as long as she can learn to read.
Re-educate her, yeah.
Fortunately, it's 60s television. She's fine by the next episode, by no mention of it ever occurring again.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to pursue this kind of plotline in some more modern serialised Trek. I suppose something similar happened to Rutherford on Lower Decks, but he got over it pretty quickly too."
Yeah, arguably. But if you think, Next Generation bothered having an episode after Best of Both Worlds where Picard was having to cope with what the Borg did to him, and that wasn't anywhere near as drastic as what's happened to her, so... We've also heard from Boss, whose birthday is quite soon. Happy birthday, sir.
Happy birthday!
This was an episode I remembered quite well. It's the one with the tiny robot that is able to destroy starships and kill billions of people with ease. It was a cross between the previous godlike aliens we've seen and the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. I thought the model was okay. There were a few wobbly moments when it moved, but I wasn't able to see the strings.
Yeah.
One of the joys of watching the original series is that you get to see the original ideas for things that were borrowed and fleshed out by later series. In this case, Nomad could be seen as an early Borg, although it was more into cleansing than assimilation, yes.
Yeah.
The idea of finding other life forms inferior is the same, though. I did raise a smile at Kirk having to keep referring to his staff as units and getting a very odd look from Spock at one point.
That's an insult, though, isn't it?
Unit. Complete, not a unit. Yeah. Speaking of Spock, I'm not sure how you mind meld with a machine, indeed.
No, I don't know either.
Could they not have used that device they used last week on Scotty? Yeah. I thought it was quite clever how they tricked Nomad into destroying itself. Less clever was the stupid red shirts shooting at it only to get vaporised.
Yep.
I also think that Uhura going from first grade reading to being back on active duty in a couple of weeks is very far-fetched. It was nice that she got to speak a bit of Swahili in it, though.
Yeah.
And this week they have photon torpedoes that they didn't have them in the episode where they were fighting the big worm thing. Makes even less sense in broadcast order. A 7 out of 10 episode, nothing that stood out as brilliant or annoying. Which is, I think, a fair estimate of it, yeah. P.S. If you don't play out with "I want to give you devotion, you are slipping," which of course is by Nomad. Yeah, not sure. It's not the best tune in the world.
No,
but anyway.
it's got horrible 90s white rap in it.
Yeah, that's quite painful. But anyway, we shall see if we get any other ideas as we go along.
Well, I have mentioned a few.
Yep.
I don't know that they're necessarily better, though, to be fair. What did Sampo and Yonna make of this? Or is it just Sampo because Yonna's given up and walked away?
Hello.
Hello.
So we just watched The Changeling.
What happens in it?
Well, there was a flying gun, and I think it tried to cock-block a man and get it to sell its land to the convent.
The one thing that wanted to do some cocky things was Spock.
Yeah, he wanted to get close and personal with the probe. Yeah, well, after last week's episode, this was all right. This was fine.
Yes.
But this was better than that and much better than the flying nun. Okay, enough about the flying nun.
Yeah. The one thing I could say about Flying Nun versus Star Trek, I totally understand the greatness of Star Trek since the reference is a Flying Nun.
Yeah, so Star Trek suddenly seems pretty good in comparison.
Yes, and we had just a great episode. The only problem was Uhura. Her mind was wiped and she still remembered Swahili, her mother language, I guess.
And they were no, English.
Yes, not in Swahili. Use English. And then there was this
God's language. Yeah.
So this is the level of problems like this time. Otherwise, it was nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the one sort of stupid part. I mean, okay, her brains got wiped, and okay, she needs 1 week of reading basically. Where's the ball spot? And
it means she's really bright.
Well, Uhura is pretty bright, so I guess that's. I mean,
there's this Kirk in the beginning saying that they mean no harm to any life forms.
Yeah, they say that, but
then there's this bird.
Yeah, the bird
Couple.
Yes, the big third machine, and well, they end up killing almost all aliens they meet.
And women.
Yeah, and Klingons.
And Klingons, yes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Liar, pants on fire.
Yeah, error. Yeah, this was another classic example of Kirk talking a machine to death. So, I mean, it doesn't happen too often, but often enough that it's a trope, really.
Okay.
What else? It was refreshing that for once they met someone who didn't speak English right away, which was a bit ironic taking into account that it was from Earth.
Yeah, interesting, but it was binary, so...
Yeah.
So what was the guy whose work was like put the lights on when people came into the room?
That was a force field.
Okay.
I know, I mean, they might have looked like fluorescent lights, but it was a force field, believe me.
Okay, well that explains it.
The red shirts were pretty stupid. I mean, after the first few, I mean, Kirk should have just said to the guards that don't try to shoot the thing, it won't work, you'll just die.
Did you think about Daleks when?
Well, I didn't, but you did, and when you mentioned it, well, I could see the connection.
Yeah,
you know.
Exterminate.
Yeah, Sterilize. Which came first, this or Star Trek? I actually
don't know.
Oh, sorry, this or
I wouldn't
Doctor
know.
Who? I don't know either.
I think it was funny they met this actually bizarre thing and everyone was quite...
Yeah, so I mean, usually they only meet humans who are dressed funnily in a robe or something. Now they actually found something bizarre and everyone's like, Yeah, I mean, even the cameraman went crazy. The director was earning his pay there. Although, I mean, it did unfortunately wobble a bit when it moved around, but never mind. I mean, it was a lot nicer than, I mean, usually the superpowered things are just humans in robes. So, I mean, this was a great improvement compared to that.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. So, yes, I mean, I guess, maybe it was last week's woman-hating episode was Flying Nun, but in contrast, this was actually pretty good. So, yay.
Yay!
Okay, so we're not waiting for the next episode with dread this time. So time to get our sort of expectations crushed again, I guess.
I guess, but we'll see it in the next 2 weeks or so.
Something like that. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Yes, brace yourself for the next one.
Yeah.
Better than the Flying Nun. Well, there's a review.
That's how you get Yona to like Star Trek. Show her the Flying Nun.
Yes, it could be worse.
Yes, it could. And you're right, they shouldn't be turning around and saying to her, not in Swahili. She should be learning to read in Swahili and then learning other languages.
Yeah, well, as they were saying, it almost suggests that she somehow didn't get wiped of Swahili. So that was somehow she innately knew it, which isn't the way languages work. So, but yeah, confusing.
It is, but if she did innately knew it, they should have taught her everything in Swahili, including then other languages.
Yes, quite. But yes, the Daleks did come before Nomads. Daleks 1963, whereas this is late 60s. So
yeah. And you're right, they are, to quote the terrible song, Starfleet are very much we come in peace, shoot to kill.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
No, I don't blame you. But they might not have come across it because Finland.
Yeah, well, Star Trekking by the firm, was it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Star Trekking by the firm.
Yeah, but don't say we didn't warn you, basically.
No, you might want to just find somewhere where you can read the lyrics.
Maybe, yes. Next up, we hear from the Llama God.
Lois log, fixie tree, care, fixie kirk. But why would a leaf want to walk? So yes, I'm sure this has been said already and many times, but this episode is indeed basically, and obviously was the inspiration for, i.e. they just copied it from Star Trek the Motion Picture. And whilst it proves that film could have been a much better film if it had been a lot shorter, it still wouldn't necessarily been short enough, because this is a nice idea, there's some great ideas here, but nevertheless the execution still makes it feel way too slow and overlong for what it actually is. The central conceit of the probe that's been reprogrammed and has corrupted its original mission parameters, and in this case it's because two probes corrupted, is probably actually better than what we get in the motion picture. Yes, this is lacking the visuals and the sense of mystery that you get around V'Ger, but I like the idea that there are two rather innocuous sets of goals that have collided here to form something quite lethal, and that's a really nice little idea. Unfortunately, the whole mystery behind it and how we got there and everything is just, it just doesn't sustain interest despite what's going on, which is really unfortunate. But putting all that aside, and it's very easy to do that, one of the big problems with this episode, unsurprisingly, is sexism again and how female characters are treated. Now, in this episode, we see Scotty get zapped once again. I mean, maybe he'll learn his lesson from this time, stop playing around with godlike things. And he dies, but of course he gets better. Although you do have to wonder, has he now developed an irrational hatred of probes? Does he have to go on a killing spree in the fog again to get over it? I don't know. Poor guy can't get a break, can he? But the treatment of her is much different. From the initial scan of her, this unit is imperfect and massive conflicting impulses. The unit is a woman. Yeah, because it's the men that are rational and stable. Yeah, that's what makes us different to women. Women are conflicting impulses. Men are so rational and stable. Yeah, let's just have a quick look around at the world and every major government that's run by mostly male politicians. Yeah, that's why the world's in such a great, fine, stable shape, isn't it? Yes, yeah. I'm sure this has already been commented on, so I won't elaborate into that further. But the real problem is how they deal with Uhura and the way that her complete loss of memory is trivialised. Now, obviously, you could just argue that there's certain things that she's forgotten, that she still remembers who she is, but seeing that happen to the character now, after what we learn about her in Strange New Worlds, how we've seen her grow, what we learn about her backstory, the implication there that that's all been wiped from her mind is pretty horrific, really. Well, obviously it hasn't all been wiped from her mind because she can speak Swahili, so one assumes she's still got her affinity for languages, but nevertheless it's slightly unnerving, and the whole idea of an entire personality just being wiped like that, or is personality more than just some of the memories, all of these things, these are very meaty subjects for whole other episodes of Star Trek or other TV shows to deal with, and here it's just overlooked and swept under the carpet, and the fact it happens to a female character and a person of colour just makes it feel really uncomfortable. I mean, the fact that Kirk's comment at the end when he discovers that she'll be back to work within the week is like, it just doesn't fit right, does it? It's like, she needs therapy or something. This is just, so I mean, I know it was the 1960s, I know that Uhura wasn't the focus of this story, it was all about the ideas of the probe, but just the way that she's treated just makes me feel quite uncomfortable. On the plus side though, seeing with her learning to read words again and learning how to pronounce certain words like the colour blue does at least give us the chance to do this. Yeah, that makes it worth it, doesn't it? No, not really. So, yeah, I mean, aside from that, I don't really have much to say about the episode, which I think is rather telling, really. I mean, Nimoy gives a decent performance as ever, but yeah, in general, not a lot to say about this one. So, yeah, still, as ever, I'll be interested to find out what everyone else makes of these. I hope everyone's having a good time just getting used to it, and until next time, glory to you and your cast.
There's a man who's got a young child, clearly.
Yeah.
Because, that ain't a show our kids watched.
No, they watched... Oh, God, what did they watch? It's bloody SpongeBob.
SpongeBob, Story Makers.
Oh, Story Makers, Octonauts.
Yeah, that was sort of later, though, a bit, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, Tweenies.
Yeah, anyway, we're beyond those days, thankfully.
Thank fuck, yes.
Yes, Scotty developing an irrational hatred of probes was funny.
Yeah. And, a whole load of conflicting impulses must be a woman. No, probably just a human. But I don't have conflicting them.
Yeah.
Drunk. I'm just always angry, like the Hulk.
Yes.
And did you find it still too slow, even though obviously it's less long than the...
I was all right with it pacing-wise. I mean, compared to some of the other episodes we've had recently, this was fine. Yeah, it didn't bother me.
Yeah. What did Drew and Tracy make of this? Is it a classic?
So what did you think of that episode?
It was alright.
Okay.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was excellent.
Was it a classic?
It was a classic indeed.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's go through some stuff then.
Okay.
I just have to say, Kirk back in the gold.
Yes,
liked it a lot, and he was fucking hot.
For the first time, I can see it with his little bit of like gelled hair and a little flick. I was like, I can actually see like the attractiveness.
You did say that, and I was like, I've
not seen it
from day one. He was looking fine.
He was looking fine.
In this episode. So 4 billion people have been killed.
Yeah.
And they kind of say it once, and then they brush over it.
Yeah.
Don't they?
They do.
Then they talk about Warp 15.
Yeah, I know.
Which we did have a quick conversation about, and we kind of said, well, you said that that's equivalent
warp,
to like Warp
9.99999.
So I have to say, Nomad.
Yes.
But I kept wanting to call him Damon because obviously that's back to front, like flip reverse, and it kind of makes it more personable. He just reminded me of like a Metal Mickey stroke Soda Stream.
I can see that. Yeah.
Kind of monster not monster, but like a machine.
Evil
and it just,
computer.
It was daft, and like he kept having like the antenna come out that looked a bit like
K9.
We said, and I don't get it in these kind of like sci-fi episodes because I just think he's a fucking robot.
Yep.
Just twat him one. Why is he so scary?
Why does he shields? We saw all the red shirts. They kept trying to shoot him and get blasted.
Bend his like antenna off, and you could see the string clearly at one point.
You could. So everyone's going to be talking about her, I'm sure, and are they going to retrain her? I'm just going to put this out there. That's why no mention of Strange New Worlds, because all that information's gone. All Hemmer and all that lot, it's gone.
But
that's why she never mentioned anything about it.
Maybe, but
continuity.
Yeah, and this just did annoy me because she's lost all her memories, and they're going to re-educate her, but they're not going to be able to give her memories back about her family.
Yeah.
Or how she went through the academy, or how she lost her virginity.
Yes.
Anything like that.
She's going from like the dog's got the ball. Like to next week when we see her again to like she knows like 17 languages and all that.
By the end of this episode, which is about 20 minutes, they say, she's at college level education.
She'll be alright in a week.
Fucking Nora.
I don't think so. So it's a good job that Kirk, the creator of Nomad, he's got something to do with Kirk, and it just happens that Captain Kirk's name is Kirk, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite an unusual name, isn't it?
Okay, yeah.
I was just wondering, like, if the creator of Nomad had been like someone like somebody Shuttleworth or something like that, and like the captain, it's Captain Shuttleworth for Enterprise. Like, you'd have to have that coincidence, wouldn't you? Like, Kirk's not a common name, is it?
We do know a Shuttleworth, so you better want to fucking hope he ain't watching listening to this.
It's just a good coincidence that Captain Kirk's name is something to do with the creator of Nomad, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Spock can now mind meld with a computer.
Well, I said to you, how does he know where his head is?
Well, yeah, I know, we always get that. Why don't I just plug a laptop into it? And
have laptops in them days.
Yeah, can do. And what? Spock can mind meld with any computer. Can he like mind meld with the washing machine and go, "Why are you not running now?" And it goes, "Oh, the door's not closed properly."
So we absolutely loved the point where Kirk and Spock were talking, and Spock was saying,
you didn't think I had it in me,
Captain," and he went, "No," and
so
Kirk's
straight
face
Spock
was just like so hurt. We fucking laughed about that. And we did rewind it like 5 times.
I think it's literally
to watch
5
it
times.
And watch it again.
It's so good.
That was really good. Really, really good.
So this episode is a cold stone classic.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
It
It's excellent.
was all right. It was just a bit dark. I mean, we
got
haven't
dark
mentioned
moments.
the fact that 4 red shirts copped it in this episode.
They keep shooting at him. Why would you shoot at the nomads?
Well, the first 2 that got copped, you'd thought that Kirk would put out like things saying, "Do not fucking shoot your phasers at Nomad."
Yes.
Well, he didn't do that.
No.
Anyway, it was alright.
It's excellent, I would say.
Loved it. Yes.
Excellent, yeah.
Leave it there.
Okay.
See you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I think you need to clean the needle on your record there. It's what it sounded like, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's curious. I haven't heard that sound in a long while.
And why can't Spock mind meld with washing machines and tell you what's wrong? It would be bloody useful skill, I tell you.
Yeah.
And why did they not plug in a laptop? I mean, that would be what they would do now, wouldn't it? In a more modern series, if they'd plug another computer into it somehow.
Yeah, although these days they wouldn't even bother physically plugging anything, would they? Yeah, there's something a bit canine-like about those antennae, I suppose.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And yes, the warp scale does get rather changed for Next Generation.
Yeah. And in terms of good job, Kirk's name is Kirk. It's going to be a more common name in the US than the UK because Kirk is the Scottish word for church, which comes from the Presbyterians, a significant proportion of which went over to the US on the Mayflower.
There you go, you see. Communicational we are. Shatner does do comedy really well.
He does.
That double take of his is really
Yeah.
really good. And he's better in comedy episodes generally.
And I love the fact that you're like, where's the memories of her family? Where's the memory of her losing her virginity? All the really important things, But things that make you a person.
Yeah, as Lana said, it's actually pretty horrific.
It is.
And to be treated as lightly as this doesn't seem right somehow. But there we go. That's the way they dealt with these things. Hey, at least they didn't write her out or something.
Yeah.
So,
And I suppose at the time the writers were trying to make it not as horrific by saying that they can cure it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I don't think they expected people to think as deeply about it as we do.
Probably. Anyways, let's find out what Pieman thought.
Hello Args, Parry here to talk about the Changeling. Still recording on my phone, but not whispering because I'm in a hotel somewhere in Kent. I don't know, the glamorous life of a trainer. Anyway, the Changeling. Now, I remember Pete mentioning that he had this one on video. It was bought by your parents, I think. The same thing. I had the same thing. I don't know if it means that, like, whatever video, sort of sale, I don't know, John Menzies, W.H. Smith or Tower Records or something just bought the one TOS video and just sold that to everyone, which I could firmly believe. But yeah, this was like the first, I think I did see TOS when I was very small, but the first TOS I remember watching was, yes, this one, the Changeling and the Apple, which we'll get to on another episode. And I wonder if it's anyone else's first experience, if that was like, if you're a Trek fan in Britain in the 1990s, this is the video you got. One of the things is it's a very similar plot to Star Trek the Motion Picture. If you're going to make the decision, this is shorter than the motion picture, where I'd argue the motion picture is prettier spaceships and a generally more upbeat ending than this one. It's not the ending of this one's downbeat, it's just that, V'ger eventually ascends to higher plane of being, whereas poor old Nomad just blows himself up in an existential crisis. It's not bad, particularly since it's a bottle episode, although we do get to see we see another new set, we see another auxiliary control room, which is quite fun, but largely it is a killer probe, which is only not killing everyone because it thinks Kirk's its creator, effectively thinks Kirk's God, going around causing mischief in the Enterprise with an ultimate goal to go back and sterilise Earth. And for a tiny probe, it packs a hell of a punch, nearly destroying the Enterprise at the start. It's the threat's established very. I mean, this episode kicks in, and it's killed an entire civilization. It's basically genocided a planet, like multiple planets. I think this is billions of people. A whole race has basically been wiped out, which isn't maybe focused on enough. It's focused on a bit, like they definitely point it out, but not enough. And in fact, a few things. Scotty dies. But he gets better, thanks to Nomad. And weirdly, Uhura gets her memory wiped. But they can we can re-educate her. It's like, you can, teach her Sea Dog run, spot, run, or whatever it is on the Enterprise. Although she seems to know Swahili instantly. I don't know if Chapel's already taught her everything in Swahili, or if that's, and this is where I'd say, in my own head canon, she had a lot of stuff taken out, but it was mostly knowledge rather than memories, so she still remembered her mum, for example. Although it does allow for a slight continuity snafu, because Uhura's brilliant with languages. We see that in Strange New Worlds, we've seen it in other things. But in Star Trek 6, she doesn't know Klingon. Was that because Nomad wipes Klingon from her head? There's a food for thought thing. But yeah, I think while it's nice for Nichelle Nichols to have stuff to do, I think, having your memory wiped maybe wasn't exactly what she was after. Although she gets quite a bit of other stuff to do. But the memory wipe thing's kind of a bit weird. Other than that, like I say, there's some good Kirk-Spock stuff interacting with each other. I think they actually bounce off each other quite well. And I'll give credit to the No-Man probe. Okay, so now in pin-sharp Crikey vision, we can quite clearly see the fishing wire that it's hanging off, and there's obviously some stagehand at the back with a giant kind of pole dangling the thing. But in fairness, they usually get the movement pretty stable. When you see some other things like that done, they wobble like buggery. And in that one, they do seem to try and make it float relatively realistically. I think it's only the scene where it's flying around engineering that it really starts waggling about madly. So actually, for the time, I'm not saying it was a good convincing effect, but for the time, it was actually done pretty well. And yeah, overall, it's pretty enjoyable. It's a solid wee 45 minutes of TV. It's got a nice concept behind it, and good bit of tension. And maybe it's just I'm too familiar with this one as well. Like, I'm quite familiar with it, having watched it a lot, so I kind of know all the story beats before they come, but it still kept my attention. And after multiple watches, that's quite something. So all it remains for me to say is do keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast, and I'll hopefully be back in the next one. But until then, bye for now.
Bye. Bye. Yeah, I think this may have been the last video left in the shop for several of us. Yeah. And it was the only one available at the time. Certainly, I was hoping to get Space Seed, I know that. And it was a little while before I eventually managed to source that one, but yes. The auxiliary control room, of course, we saw in the Doomsday Machine, so they're just dusted off that set.
Yeah.
But I think Pieman's theory that Uhura retained something is probably the best explanation. So it didn't completely wipe her, it just wiped her of quite a bit of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is still pretty horrific, but not as horrific.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody who's fed back. Update on Picard's situation. Dear. Yeah, the last episode did not impress either, I'm afraid. I could rant quite easily about that, but it wouldn't make for a very jolly podcast. So, and the fact that we'd be watching something where there were 8 good episodes and then they completely screw the pooch for the last 2 seems a really sad way of doing it.
I'm not watching it, but equally you've also decided you're not watching Discovery Season 4.
Yeah. Yes, there will be something. So we'll be moving over to Trek every 2 weeks again, continuing with the original series. And then interspersing with it, we'll dust off the old feeds. The old Galactica feed. All I'm saying so far is we'll be covering something sci-fi, but more on that in weeks to come. So, yes, next time we do original series, we will indeed be covering The Apple in 2 weeks' time.
Dear.
That's on the
4th.
Whereas next week, on the
11th,
we're covering the Lower Decks episode Crisis Point 2 Paradoxus, or something like that it is.
Right.
Yes. There we go. Until then, take care. Cheerio, bye.
Bye.
The opening music for this podcast was provided by the talented Drew Barker. The artwork was created by Andy Palastides.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can find us over on Mastodon. Our addresses are on the show notes for this podcast.
Shut it down!